This is the new Toyota Tundra, and we've covered the launch and debut of this thing to an almost nauseating degree. Then Paulo went out to Texas to drive it at the launch event. But now I've had a chance to spend a week with it and really see what it's like to live with. So let's hop in. Finally getting to spend some time with one of the biggest launches from last year, and that's the new Toyota Tundra. This, of course, is a brand new, ground-up truck, and with it comes a myriad of new changes. So let's do some housekeeping at the top here. Like I said, this is a ground-up redesign of the Tundra, which means it's riding on a new chassis. It's the TNGA-F platform, and it's a big deal because it's managed to shave 400 pounds while upping the rigidity by 20%. And a new platform usually means new engines too. No more 5.7 liter naturally aspirated I-Force V8. The new I-Force generation of engines is a 3.5 liter twin turbo V6. You also get a 10-speed automatic gearbox, and both the engine and the transmission come from Lexus. Of course, they've been completely reworked and remapped and re-geared for truck duty to fit in this Tundra. Now, it's not the hybrid I-Force Max engine, but we flick it up into sport here, put our foot down, and it makes some good power. 389 horsepower and 479 pound-feet of torque to be exact. The hybrid offers quite a bit more power, so we'll be excited to try that later this year. However, the whole point of going to a smaller engine was to improve fuel economy, and it has, kinda. The EPA rates this spec at 19 combined, which I've been getting closer to 16, but that's a lot of idling for filming. So yes, it's more powerful than the old V8, it's more efficient than the old V8, and it has a decent sound to it. It's not a low V8 grumble, but it does its best to mimic that old sound. Power delivery is very smooth. It's a nice application, it rolls on the power well. The transmission shifts pretty smooth. I do notice a little bit of clunkiness at lower speeds from first to second gear or going from reverse to drive, but overall it's pretty smooth experience. And between you and me, I noticed a little bit worse in the Lexus LX that we tested the other week, and that has the same powertrain as this. Ultimately though, shifting back to this Tundra, it's a nice powertrain setup at the front here. The engine and the transmission work really well. The 10-speed in here, I think, works a little bit better than the 10-speed that you would get in the F-150. It's a nice, smooth power application befitting of the limited badge on the side of the truck. This is a limited trim, but it also has the TRD off-road package. What this results in is this truck getting a lot of the off-road goodies we've come to love from the Toyotas. It's still a part-time 4x4 system, and that's the only deficiency as opposed to competitors like the Ram and the Ford. However, you get the fantastic multi-terrain select, you get multi-terrain monitor, you get rear auto LSDs, and also a locker on the back, which is fantastic and you didn't have before. And of course, you get bash plates underneath and upgraded Bilstein suspension. We'll wait for the full TRD Pro later this year to take it on Road America's off-road course, but given my intimate knowledge of that course, I don't have any shadow of a doubt that this thing would do perfectly fine on that course. I do, however, want to talk about drivability and the more on-road manners that this thing brings. The Tundra made a huge change for this generation. Of course, you've got dual wishbone front suspension, but the big change comes in the 5-link multi-link rear suspension out back with coil springs rather than leaf springs. And what it's done is transformed the ride on this Tundra from something that's very typical truck to something that's not quite Raptor smooth, but very, very smooth. Toyota's using a dual wishbone front suspension for added front-end refinement. But the big story is the 5-link rear suspension that's replaced the leaf springs. Their other truck is still using drum brakes in the rear, so this is super progressive from Toyota. With this new suspension, you'll get a little less jitteriness over some road imperfections because, well, this is still a truck and I don't have anything in the bed, but overall, it's a much more composed ride. And it's an improvement that you can feel in other places on the truck. The steering feels more connected. You have different drive modes. You got normal, eco, and sport. And they can control the character of the car. Overall, though, it's a thoroughly more modern truck. But it is still a truck, which means we have to cover truck stuff. Towing maxes out for this limited 4x4 Crew Max 5.5 foot bed configuration at 11,120 pounds, and payload maxes out at 1,740 pounds. But this isn't a one-trick pony, so let's step outside and talk about some important details. Okay then, so behind the wheel, then, this thing drives pretty well. I'm actually very impressed with it, and I think it looks even better. I'm not the only one that thinks that. Everywhere that I've taken this thing over the past week, I have been stopped by people. Maybe it's because it's brand new, maybe it's because Toyota only releases a new version of a car every 3 decades, I don't know, but it's gotten a lot of attention, and it's kind of funny to see like what cars we test get more or less attention. This has gotten more attention than the McLaren GT that we drove last summer. But anyway, let's talk about the way that this thing looks. We have it in Barcelona Rojo, or Barcelona Red. I think this is a great red, better than the Solar Octane, I think, that the TRD Pro comes in, although it's got a little bit of an orangish tinge to it. But anyway, this has a really nice kind of aggressive, muscular look to it. There's bulging in the hood. You have a typical Toyota emblem in your grille, but you do have TRD stamped up here because this is, after all, the TRD off-road package equipped on this limited trim. The grille itself, there's really no getting away from this right here. It's just the nature of the plastic grille and the weave that they've done here. But you do have LED lights down in here for fogs. You have Tundra stamped in your lower bumper. You've got parking sensors. And of course, I think Paul and I, neither of us are really a fan of chrome. I wouldn't go so far as to really call this chrome. It's got kind of more of a satin finish, but it is a nice little accent to kind of break up the red and the black. Around here, you have really interesting headlights. They're like a triple beam kind of thing, and you can see the hardware, like the screws and the hex bolts that go into, putting these diodes together. It's a sequential LED here, and you have a nice little vent down here. Moving around to the side though, again, there's a lot of design elements going on. There's a lot of bulging and body lines and creases to give it kind of an interesting look. The last one was very soft, very round. This is very much the other direction. You do have scratchy black plastic wheel molding, typical for something like this, especially for the TRD off-road package, but you do have TRD Pro wheels wrapped in Falcon Wild Peak all-terrain tires. And of course, as we continue down the profile, we have more chrome accents. This is more what I would consider classic chrome, because it actually does have a more chrome shiny finish to it. You also have chrome door handles, and that is of course because you have the limited trim. The only other bit of chrome down here is of course the Tundra badge on the door, which I like. I think it's kind of nice. You have this like floating roof type thing where your A-pillar is black, but this is where Paulo and I differ a little bit, talking about the rock rail. It's not really a running board. You can't really step on it. It's not going to help that way, but it will protect your body along with some of the bash plates underneath if you do go off-roading in this thing, because it is a long truck, so breakover is a concern. Moving on to the back though, you have your fuel door here, and then more interesting creasing and elements of design on your bed. You do have TRD 4x4 off-road sticker on the back here. You could peel it off if you really want to. But then we talk about one of the coolest things that you have on the the Tundra. You have a bed release in your sequential taillights. The taillights are sequential, by the way. They look really cool. You have a manual step to get into your bed. The bed itself is pretty simple. The tailgate, I should say. It doesn't do the origami fold like something from GM. It doesn't have bottle openers, at least not that I can see, like a Ford would. It just has little cup holders in it. I should mention the design on the bed though. You've got your chrome 4x4 badge here, Tundra stamped in, chrome Toyota. You've got a reversing light and your reverse camera there, along with a silver satin rear bumper and of course your trailer hitch receiver. But let's go into the bed. It is damped on the way down, it's manual on the way up, unlike the Raptor that we were just in. This is the 5.5 foot bed. You get a rubber bed mat in here. It's a sheet molded composite fabric if you don't go with this. I say fabric, material. You've got rails, you've got tie downs, you've got lights, you've got all sorts of typical truck stuff. But the best feature that Toyota brings that no one else can touch is the roll down rear window. You get it in the 4Runner, you get it here. I don't think you get it in the Sequoia, so enjoy it here. Up above that you have reverse light, you have another camera so you can see what's going on in your bed. It's well lit, it's very nice. What else? Oh, I know what else. Very sad, you don't have an onboard generator like you would in the Raptor. You do have 120 volt service out back, so you can still plug things into your bed, but it doesn't have the full Pro Power onboard thing that Ford would have. Again, that's a really, really cool feature, but objectively, I think this thing looks pretty dang good. So why don't we step inside? All right, and this here, the interior then, is where the huge improvements needed to be made. The old Tundra came out in '07 and you could really tell. So this thing needed to play catch up a lot, and it definitely has. There's a couple reminders that you're still in the classic Toyota. The gauge cluster looks like it was lifted from the previous gen and then like very mildly reskinned. So there's some cost saving there, or maybe it's just, you know, classic Toyota, but either way, it totally works. It's fine. It's not a big deal. Everything else though is totally new and improved. You get a massive 14-inch screen, which I've had a mixed experience with. When it comes to working, like, and how it works, it's amazing. It's quick. The colors are great. The brightness is good, even in midday sun. It does do some weird screen jumping. This is a pretty early one, so maybe that's just, you know, kind of like an almost pre-production, you know, early model kind of thing. I'd expect they fix that through over-the-air updates. Also, since the screen is so big, you do have shortcuts built in to the left-hand side of the screen, so closest to you as the driver. They work well, they make sense, but there is some weird navigational stuff in terms of like how you navigate through the radio that's not quite as intuitive as you would find in, well, really every other car. But, you know, to be honest, I never listen to the radio anyway, and Apple CarPlay is wireless and it works perfectly fine for me. And if you don't want to use wireless CarPlay because it works on Wi-Fi, you do have a USB plug in there as well. I did mention during the driving portion that this has multi-terrain monitor as part of the TRD off-road package, and it does. There's cameras everywhere and the resolution is a lot better than it has been in the past. But I did, and this only happened once during my week with it, and when I turned the truck on and turned it off and then back on, it went away. But half of the screen went green, but only when the cameras were on. Like the normal screen went fine, but half the screen was green when I went to the camera. So that was a little bit odd. Again, probably something fixed in over-the-air updates, or maybe just a one-off weird thing. In terms of tech overall, though, you do get a wireless charger, and of course you get Toyota Safety Sense 2.5. I think they're working on Safety Sense 3, or that has been rolled out with the BZ4X. I'm not exactly sure. This one's okay, not perfect. I have a lot of construction around me, and it didn't deal with it. It didn't deal with like the changing lines and the temporary lines and the construction barrels quite as well as the Ford Mustang Mach-E that I'm also testing here this week. So it worked well, not great. But then in terms of design, the interior here is really nice. It's very symmetrical, it's good sizing, proportions. The design is very, I don't know what you would say, rugged, it's geometric, it makes a lot of sense. You've got decent materials, there's rubberized materials on a lot of the buttons, they're huge. The plastics are made to look like, you know, metal with some little accenting like on the volume knob here for like faux screws. It has a very truckish feel to it. And because of that, the usability is very good. A lot of the stuff that you have for buttons that are rubberized are things like your HVAC controls, or your heated seat, heated steering wheel, cooled seat. Those are all not baked into the screen, which is fantastic. It's incredibly usable. You don't have to navigate through a bunch of screens to turn on your heated seat or your cooled seat. Speaking of seats, I should mention that the cooled seat, the fan is very loud, but it does a very good job at cooling you down, so I guess that's fine. And to be honest, you turn the radio on, you don't really hear it too much anyway. I do want to talk about these seats though, because I'm a big fan. They are the perforated black leather. They don't have the Arctic camo that you would find in like the TRD Pros, but they have this like almost like old school Gothic design to it. It is very, very cool, very fancy feeling, especially in this limited trim. I like it a lot. But bouncing back to usability, there's a huge center console here with a load of storage. You get a bunch of chargers, you get a sliding tray, etc. The cup holders are like a graduating depth. So there's a deeper one that's closer to the passenger, a shallower one. They kind of fit the Downshift water bottle of truth, but you really have to jam it in there. So it's like a half pass, I guess. And then in terms of like your normal everyday stuff, the JBL audio system is very good. There's like a subwoofer underneath the driver's seat, I think, and there's a lot of bass, there's a lot of depth to this system, and that's something that we've criticized in the past in previous Toyota models. So it's a nice sound system that you get in here. You don't have it on this tester, but you can get a big pano roof, and that's something that I would personally like to option if I could, but you just don't have it here. The rear seats though, they're spacious. They're not quite as big as you would get on something like a Super Crew F-150 or a comparable Ram 1500, but they're totally usable, really spacious and relaxing. You do get storage underneath in the TRD Pro and Capstone or hybrid versions of this truck. That's where the battery will go, so you won't get storage underneath there on those trims. Overall, a crucial and really well executed update to the cabin that genuinely feels like it could go toe-to-toe with a comparable Ram or Ford. So I think that's probably a good time to get into the final thoughts. So that's what it's been like living with the new Tundra. It's 90% there. This is their first year, and there are a couple weird things with the technology to be sorted out, but like I said, those are quick and simple fixes through over-the-air updates. The things that can't be changed with software are very good though. The design is very good, the driving behavior is very nice, bordering on some luxury ladder frame SUVs, and the interior is modern and feature rich. And since this is a Toyota video, I'd be massacred if I didn't mention reliability. Yes, the 3.5 twin-turbo V6 is more complex than the 5.7 V8 iForce, and there are a couple wastegate issues in a small number of very early run Tundras. However, there are always issues with the first few cars. So if anyone will be able to sort it out, it's Toyota. Thanks for watching, we'll see you in the next one.